Welcome back to a special episode of Real Reactions we're calling Real Opinions, where we'll be covering different childhood classics that the cast of Real Reactions loves. Now, I want you to think about your favorite show or movie to watch as a little kid. Is it the Disney classic Camp Rock or Camp Rock 2, The Final Jam? Is it the iconic rom-com like Princess Diaries 1 or 2? Or maybe a spooky Tim Burton movie like Beetlejuice? We will cover it all, and we promise to keep it real, of course. Okay, so let's get into some childhood nostalgia. Welcome back, everyone. We're missing two, but love to see all of your wonderful faces. So we don't have a specific film or show to cover today, but we're going to be talking about everyone's favorites. So let's start off. I'm curious to know, what are all of your childhood favorite movies?
My favorite, I guess I'll go with animated. I feel like I watched a lot of animated movies. Was My Neighbor Totoro, the Studio Ghibli movie. That was my favorite growing up. And Monsters, Inc. I love Monsters, Inc. And my favorite live action movie was probably Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka used to scare me so bad. Like when Augustus fell in the lake of chocolate, I was like, is that gonna happen to me? Even though there was no logic. That movie traumatized me. My favorite movies, ones that come to mind: Spy Kids. That movie used to be on loop. The movie was fire. Chicken Little. I remember I had the book. There was a novel.
Yeah, I watched Tangled, and it's not one of my favorite movies, but what happens to me is sometimes when I watch Disney movies, I cry the whole movie because they're so cute and I'm super sensitive. So I watch something and I really have to be in a very, very happy mood to not cry. So I wanted to watch something. My favorite movie is Peter Pan, but I knew I was gonna cry if I watched Peter Pan and I didn't feel like crying. So I watched Tangled instead. And it was just so cute. I feel like it's such a happy movie.
We used to travel a lot from Florida to Massachusetts, and my parents had those, remember those old flip computers when they had the one disc tray in it? So they would put a movie in there to get me to shut up during the flight, which is understandable. But I remember my go-to two of them were the Raimi Spider-Man movies, 1 and 2. Those were the ones that were out at the time. And I remember watching Revenge of the Sith a lot on there, which it's not as good as when I was a kid, but I still really appreciate that movie.
That's cool. My brother and I are pretty diehard prequel fans, and for the sole fact, we totally grew up on those. So they just have such a special place in my heart. We watch, especially Revenge of the Sith, so many times. I feel like I've seen that more than a normal person should, but
So out of all of these favorite movies, what are your favorite characters?
The cheese guy from the Goofy movie. That guy I don't know, he just had drip. He was just cool. The guy with the cheese can, just spraying everything.
I remember that guy. I really remember that guy. And then for me, it would be obviously Peter Pan. And then for Tangled, it would be that little chameleon because he's so cute.
I think mine has to be Mike Wazowski. He's such a king. I feel like I resonate so much with him. Just that's formulated my personality up to this point. The humor that's in that movie.
Another movie that I loved when I was little were the Scooby-Doo movies, but that were in person. And there was an island full of ghosts, and they had to go and discover what was going on. And then the museum one, and the museum is haunted. It was just so cool. I love those movies so much.
Those movies were great. Definitely they defined our childhood. And I don't think they're trying to remake them, but they cannot top those. Anyways, any favorite scenes come to mind?
Spider-Man 2, when he stops a train, where I love the Doc Ock fight scene. And I would probably say the second contender is Avengers of the Sith final lightsaber fight, because as a kid it's just cool to see flashing lights hit each other and stuff like that.
Remember the SpongeBob movie? It used to go so hard. The scene when he's on David Hasselhoff's back, I remember being so confused. I was like, is this a real person? I still don't know, to be honest. But that scene was just, and the scene where they're dehydrated, they need water, they're I don't want to spoil it, it's kind of old if you guys haven't seen it, but such a classic.
The best scene in that movie for me is when they're singing that they're Goofy. I don't know how they call it in English, but it's that one song. And in Spanish, Yeah, and in Spanish it translates to "Soy un cacahuate." Soy un cacahuate. So like the whole song is just repeating the same thing, and it's so good. Like I could watch it on repeat, and I would never stop laughing.
Now all I'm picturing is the Goofy Goober like ending scene, SpongeBob hanging from the ceiling with Patrick and his fishnets. That was great. Do we have any favorite lines or quotes from the film? Films, plural.
Well, now I can only think of the Goofy Goober song. There's nothing else. Head empty, no thoughts, just Goofy Goober song.
This movie hasn't been mentioned yet, but I gotta mention it, is Toy Story. I love it when Woody just tells Buzz, "You are a toy," and then it's that line is, I always find it very funny.
I literally can't think of a favorite line from Monsters, Inc. Like, I feel like every word of it is so funny, but still put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. Like, that part, just like, I feel like that's iconic. I don't know.
Oh my God, I just remembered in Spy Kids, when maybe it's the second one, when they find out that the theme song to that one show backwards is like, help us, we need help. Like that, I remember my brain exploding as a child.
Or like when, is it Steve Buscemi who's like, is it because like God stays in heaven because he's just afraid of what happened on earth or something?
I was just gonna say that. That's what I was getting ready to say. As soon as he brought up Spy Kids 2, that memory just like came right up. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was talking to my roommates and then they said, yeah, the line's from Spy Kids 2. I'm like, there's no way it's from Spy Kids 2.
Also, I don't know how I forgot to mention the Rugrats. I used to mold my life schedule around being able to watch that show and the movies. And a Rugrats Hanukkah, Halloween, like it's just too many to count.
Yeah, all the cartoon shows like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, those are such great shows. Tom and Jerry too. I remember whenever I was sick at home when I was younger, Tom and Jerry would always be on. Like I have that memory just ingrained in my head. So did we learn anything from these films and shows?
I don't know about like learning anything, but I think it's funny to like go back and like when you watch something from your childhood now and you like find a joke that like you totally missed as a kid, but then like it's funny to you now. I feel like that's always a little bit of a gem when something is still funny even after all these years.
You just, I learned you got to be ready. SpongeBob's always ready. You just got to be prepared.
I feel like you can always learn something from a movie. From Peter Pan, obviously, it's like, remember, to have the innocence of a child, always, and like the dreams of a child, and don't give that up. And then from Tangled, follow things, do what you want to do, even if you're scared.
I don't think like I can like say what I learned, but I'm sure like subconsciously I learned something because like, as a kid, like you're literally a sponge. Like you'll just take in any piece of information you get. And I'm sure I've learned lessons and stuff, but I just can't think of what it is on the top of my head.
Okay, does anyone have any last remarks about their films or anything?
Should we talk about some TV shows? I feel like that's like a whole other like subcategory that we can mention. But mine was definitely all the Cartoon Network catalog. They had Kids Next Door, Foster Home for Imaginary Friends. That was my favorite. Chowder, and then they had Courage. I could not watch Courage as a kid. That always scared me. But
I watched
know
that.
people love Courage.
I think I saw one episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog and I never watched it again. Like it scared the living hell out of me.
Is that the one with the dog and the two really old people that lived in a house? I hated that one so much. It was so scary. I'm still scared. Like it was so bad.
Yeah,
I
still
loved
wouldn't go back and
Courage.
watch that.
I loved that show. I know that's so weird, right? I actually really liked it. I don't know. It was just different.
I remember I used to love Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Great show. And then when they moved it to like the ship on deck, like it was okay, but it was not the same.
Also the Looney Tunes movie. I don't know if you remember that movie. It was so good. So
I used to love Space Jam too. I feel like that was one that we used to watch.
All the regular Nickelodeon shows that aren't cartoons, those are great. Victorious, iCarly, Big Time Rush.
Don't forget
I
about
lived
Zoe
for those.
101.
Oh yeah,
Drake
Zoe
and
101
Josh.
too.
Drake and
Yeah.
Josh. So
It's
good.
Declassified.
Yes.
Oh, Ned's the
I loved Ned's Declassified.
It's crazy how many amazing shows there were back then when we were younger. Like I wonder if there's anything like that today for that generation.
Kids just like take selfies. I don't even think they like watch TV.
I feel like we definitely grew up in a golden age of like kids television.
Any last remarks? All right. Well, this was really fun talking about all our favorites. I'll see you all next week. Well, that made me feel very nostalgic and a little bit old. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go get some popcorn and watch my favorite childhood movie. Do you want to guess what it is? I'll give you a hint. Me, a princess? Shut up! Obviously, it's The Princess Diaries 1 and 2, because you can't forget the second one. The second one is very important, especially because Chris Pine is in it. Anyways, well, now you know. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Real Reactions. Although our reactions are a little ridiculous and a little bit racy, they're always real.